I guess I'm caught up in the Twitter world now where nothing good gets said, right?
Oh, isn't that a shame?
It is a shame.
It isn't that shame. I just social media is such a toxic place.
Why is that?
Well, that's kind of a good question. We noticed it at the Inquirer. Okay, when I was opinion editor and we ran letters to the editor, we verified every letter. In fact, we called people up to say, Mark, did you write this letter? Because every now and then somebody would pull a prank and they'd sign your name to a letter saying something horrible about somebody or just saying something totally stupid, just to embarrass you. And so we always checked them out. And then as the email came along and we started publishing letters without any attribution or verification, they became more and more nasty because people felt like they could just get away with it because they can. And that was the mix of social media that it really turned things toxic when people could say whatever they want and go up online and post comments on a news story or a column. And instead of calling you up or asking you questions, why did you say this or why did you say that? They would just write something completely irresponsible and accuse you of plagiarism or lying or dishonesty or it was so irresponsible. I really hated that side of the business when that began.
Do we need to talk about the psychology of humans?
Oh, boy.
Because what I try to be is, everybody I'm around, I think people call me a passionate guy.
Mm-hmm.
About whatever I do, I'm just going all in.
I see that.
Right? And so I think I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
I would share that about myself. If someone say, hey, are you pessimistic? I'm like, well, I'm optimistic. But I can have some pessimistic conversations. So that's the question about society. Are humans both? Are we more one or the other? Because behind the keyboard, as we call it, right, and you're anonymous, it seems that pessimism comes out more.
Mm-hmm. Criticism.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when
finding flaws.
Yes, when you're face-to-face with someone, you're not going to tell them maybe truly what you think about them inside.
Oh,
You're going to be overly nice. You're going to be a people pleaser. So are we humans more optimistic or pessimistic?
There is definitely a streak in us that wants to build ourselves up by tearing other people down or criticizing things and making ourselves sound more intelligent and able than we are. However, I can tell you this, that a column can entirely change based on whether you met the person or not. If I'm writing about you on social media, I won't write the same way if I know you, I hope, because you may know me and hold me accountable for it. Not only that, but you see the humanity in me. Yep. You see me as a person, not just a name or a celebrity or somebody to attack because I'm in a bad mood. And it just became such a game of social media where we actually had people on social media or email and comments online on our newspaper that were sort of virtual stalkers. And you know who they are. We call them trolls. Yep. We call them stalkers, whatever. But they would follow one person, and I had two or three of these people who would do nothing but get up every day and look at whatever I wrote and find ways that they could just tear me down.
You know what's unfortunate? What I found about that is, I think we can learn from this the same way you learn from those bad bosses.
Mm-hmm.
And I am at a place now where, I guess it's with maturity, it's through evolution of life, where you become less arrogant, maybe more confident, because I think confident goes with some form of humility a little bit.
Yes.
You're just okay with who you are.
There's the key word, humility.
Right? And so it's just saying, hey, maybe I'm as good as you and you're as good as me, but I'm not better. And I just don't want to think of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this stretches into this piece about those people who wake up, they're miserable.
Yes. And they want to make you as miserable as they are.
And it's terrible because I think I'm starting to have empathy for them.
Yeah.
Right? Or maybe sympathy. I can't connect with them. So maybe I'm having sympathy like, man, I am so happy that I'm not that.
Yes.
Right? I'm not going to look at it like I used to. Like, you're a horrible person. You're terrible. It's like, thank goodness that ain't me.
Yeah.
Because you start to frame it like, man, how much toxicity and negativity do you have to wake up to? And then I'm like, man, if you woke up to it, what was your previous day like?
Yeah.
And so I do think if they met you or me face to face, they wouldn't feel the same.
Definitely. People just, and some people, remember, they get their meaning, their lives are bleak, I guess, because they get their meaning from kind of piggybacking on somebody else's work to be the the jester that follows the parade, making fun of everybody. And they really have no meaning in life other than being some kind of a detractor.
Yeah, it sucks. And so how can we so many times, and I touched on human psychology a bit ago, that was some of my favorite college classes. I don't know why, but it was. I only took a couple of them. But why is there such a lack of self-confidence and self-esteem? I feel it, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I don't know if you. So to me, it feels like I just meet so many people, and I'm like, hey, you have more self-worth than you feel right now.
Right.
You could accomplish way more than inside that you believe. For some reason, you believe that you aren't capable of what someone else is. But if they've done it, you are. Mm-hmm. You're capable.
And well, we get beat
What
up.
is it? Yeah, what is
we
this?
Get beat up.
Because we didn't feel like this at 8 usually.
Exactly. There's your key. We start out as children kind of a blank slate. We're full of confidence. We believe we can do whatever we want to do. We're kind of raised that way. And our parents and our family is built around us, if we're lucky and have good, loving parents and a good, loving family, that pours that love and support into us and confidence and constantly tells us, we draw some crappy picture and we bring it home and they say, this is beautiful. And we get the refrigerator award,
We've seen those, yes.
Yeah. So, but as we go on in life, if we're not prepared, especially, then we start bumping into the hard edges of life, and people start knocking us down and telling us we're not worthy. That these people that draw their self-worth from beating up on other people's image, that's where I think a lot of people get beaten down, and they take this stuff to heart. And if they don't have a firm foundation in some other source of worth, whether it's their faith or their family or their achievements in their career, all of these things, I would say the most important that I've learned is faith. But if you don't have that foundation and something greater that says, hey, you are worthy, you are meant for bigger things and better things, and I love you, where do they get that? Well, they don't. And they constantly go through life miserable, as you said, angry, bitter, trying to hurt other people, to inflict the pain that they feel on others. And I guess the old line, misery deserves company, and they're dang sure they're going to get some company.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe society, and I think that's the piece of – I thought about conversation I wanted to have with you today. I'm like, this is going to be fascinating because there's these things. I think traditionally what I try to be a problem solver in my life. That's what I try to be.
Sure.
Not that I have the answers, but I remain curious around a subject. But there's so many subjects that in society today that seem either unsolvable or really tough to solve. All right. And so I'm thinking around this idea of social media and around human beings and who we are. Why do you think society, because I think human beings, when we start out, we all start out the same.
Mm-hmm.
No politics, no religion,
no race. Yeah.
None of it. We all start the same.
We're all just kids.
We are. And then all of a sudden, we become molded, right? Whether it's generational poverty and that thing happens, whether it's you're born into a country club family and lifestyle. It seems to me so simple how we should be. It seems so simple.
Yeah.
Like just
what happened?
What happened? Yeah, that's it. And so I'm thinking every day, like, man, how do we make positive impacts? How do we help those people to gain more confidence? And I always look back. We all have bad things and good things happen, but as society and social media, so the social media piece, the question, because I never want questions, but there's a question. I'm like, I'm going to ask Peter this because I really want his take because you have such a breadth of experience. Is more information for the average human being good? And let me frame that a little more.
That's a deep question.
Right? Because I think a guy that comes from where you are, you probably would naturally believe so.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have an educated mind, doesn't have to mean traditional education, but just educated around thought, is there too much information that the average human is putting into their head now?
Yes, I would say that is true. I can argue it two ways. One is that there has never been a golden age like this where we can find out so many things. When I research books, to find out and research history and do thorough footnotes and really verify things, it's clicks away if you know the way to do it. However, we also live in an era where people are trying to drink from a fire hose. and we have this 24/7 constant news cycle. And it really has turned into something that's kind of a sickness, I think, which is that it's I call it the panic factory. And you have it on the left and you have it on the right. And both of them know their demographic. They know who they want to feed, and they don't care if they're feeding you truth or lies, because it doesn't matter as long as they get the clicks. They have monetized sensationalism, and they feed you these lies to get you stirred up. So when you're watching a cable news show and you see that little crawler across the bottom, breaking news, that is designed to make you feel like there's something you need to do, that it's a panic inducer. It's like, what's going on now? What can I do about it? Well, there's nothing you can do about it. It's meant to frustrate you and meant to make you more fearful, and so you'd never leave their little their cult of disinformation in a lot of cases. I think the media has never been when I speak written broad, the media, all levels, has never been in more danger and more trouble and more disrespected and more poisonous to our society than it is now.
Yeah. So here's why I ask this even from my perspective, because every time I want to ask a question or have a judgment, I want to internalize it first.
Sure.
I try to do that more. And so I say, okay, if I didn't have the traditional brands of CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, CNBC, if I didn't have those, how would my life be negative or positively impacted? Let's assume those aren't there. I'm going to be honest with you. It wouldn't really change me.
Well, you know,
I don't need it.
Exactly. Do a simple test. When you go on vacation, when I go on vacation, take a couple weeks off, go out west or do something and play golf, or I don't look at any of that. I just leave it out of my life, and I find myself sleeping better. I'm so much happier. My attitude is better. My mental health is better. And then so I've made a determined effort in the last few years to really limit the intake of that stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you let it start intruding in your life too much, it's going to start affecting your whole outlook.
I remember growing up, and there were, for us in Cincinnati, it was 5, 9, and 12. I grew up in a really conservative, traditional, religious upbringing. Very, very, very. More than most people. And so we were really restricted on the things we watched on TV, on the things we listened to. Like, I remember 8-track to then vinyls.
Yeah.
It would be Cat Stevens.
Yeah.
It would be John Denver.
Yeah.
Those types of things. And on TV, I'm so embarrassed. I'm not going to talk about the shows. It would probably be like Anna Green Gables, or it would be. But I think about when the TV came on, and I remember as a kid connecting with a Peter Jennings, with a Tom Brokaw, right? With those people. And as a kid growing up, I didn't identify politics with any of them. I just listened to them, and their voices were good. Obviously, they were top of the food chain.
Sure.
Right? But it seemed like they were just informing us with really what was happening. I'm sure that there was some opinion bent.
Yep.
Someone, right? A producer, an editor. But it didn't feel like they were trying to convince me of their way. And that seemed like a simple life. And I got to focus on being a kid, being raised the way, hanging out with friends, developing your brain and your mind. It just seemed so simple and good.
Yep.
And it's just not that way anymore. And it's very unfortunate. I don't feel like how we're informed now, I don't feel like it improves me.
Well,
maybe it does somewhat, but I don't think it does.
I don't think it does when it divides our nation the way it has.
Yeah.
We now have a red tribe and a blue tribe.
It's unfortunate.
And we each have our own sources of media. And it's like two bubbles. You like the Venn diagram?
And where does it come together?
Where does it come together?
What's the truth?
Well, the media models, they don't want those to overlap because they want to control you by making you in a constant state of panic. So you have to tune in to see what's next.
Isn't
Whatever
it
is the
funny?
story of the week. And you know what else they've done? When we were kids, me much longer ago than you, if things happened that were sensational crimes in some community in Montana, for example, we wouldn't even hear about it.
Because it doesn't matter.
Now that is nationalized to make you feel unsafe in your home in Ohio. It's if it bleeds, it leads. The other thing that I've learned over the years in just watching media is that what you called out was the rise of television and how television is emotional. It goes back to McLuhan's "The media is the message." Television is raw emotion. It has the way to influence you and shape you through your emotions, not your logic, not your practicality, not through facts and figures. There's an old line that you could have congressional testimony for a week where experts would come in and stack documents a foot high, and they could bring in one woman with a tear rolling down her cheek on a TV network, and that would just push all that other stuff off the table. Because it's all emotion. And people today tend to think, a lot of them, I believe, think with their emotions, not their head. And whatever they're being shaped or pushed into, this is the thing to do, that's the thing to do, or this is how you should feel about that. You should hate these people. You should like these people. This is our tribe, their tribe. Hate them, like them. Vote for them no matter what, no matter how crooked or incompetent they are. If they're in your tribe, that's your team.
So what do we do about all this? So when I went back to him, our problem solver, that's why I think it seems so overwhelming. I'm a human, so I'm not perfect.
Right.
But I get up every day, and whatever I'm responsible for, I'm trying to do it well. I do my best. And a part of that is like try to be a good human.
Yeah.
I don't put a ton of pressure on myself, but just go back, just go out, the old golden rule stuff, just treat people the way I'd want to be treated.
Right.
We're not perfect. We probably get upset if our coffee comes out a little bit longer. We have to be
Yeah.
somewhere. But it's like, man, that
Traffic.
Yeah, right. But
You
that's
think you're a good guy till you get in traffic
right.
and somebody
You say a
cuts
couple
you off.
things, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to do a better job of that. Even saying in program of mind, be like, they don't know me.
Right.
That wasn't an intentional knock on me.
Uh-huh.
And so I don't know what the heck we do. I guess I just have to put my head down and try to impact the few people around me.
Well, maybe it took me way too long to figure this out, but simply having a positive attitude, a smile, loving on people, being kind to them, even when they're acting like a jerk. I mean, once upon a time, I used to go to somebody and hold them personally responsible for my coffee getting late. Now I go to somebody and I say, I know it's not your fault, but boy, that took a long time. Was having a rough day? Tell me about it. That kind of attitude goes a long way. You'd be surprised. It doesn't always work, but it really does work a lot to help people out, make them feel better. I mean, it goes back to what you're saying. How do we make people feel better about themselves so they're not always trying to tear other people down? The media thing, and I'll get on my soapbox here for just a minute, but as I was in my career, you called back to the Peter Jennings, the Walter Cronkite era when we had 3 networks. The gold standard for media was objectivity, impartiality, tell both sides, be fair. Don't just tell one side of the story or push an agenda. You could get fired for that. If you were a Cub reporter and you brought stories in that were pushing your opinion, people would tell you, I'm sorry, this is opinion. You can't, I'm going to red pencil all of that out of there, go back and rewrite it as a news story. We have an opinion section over here and we have a news section over here, and there's a Berlin Wall between the two. Well, throughout my career, I saw that wall be torn down. And what we see today is everybody in the news business has an opinion, and they're all pushing their opinion. And they're disguising it as news, and they're pushing agendas. And it's gotten to the point where it's become that the media, what I call the big media, networks, Washington Post, New York Times, et cetera, have totally lost credibility. It's almost a suicidal direction they're taking, which is to become so partisan that nobody has respect for them, nobody believes what they report. And then where are we as a country if we can't have common facts and things in common that we at least believe together? Because if that Venn diagram doesn't touch, you're in one bubble over here, I'm in another bubble over here, and the first thing that happens when those bubbles collide or touch is they explode.
You know what's unfortunate about that? I'm sitting here listening with this problem-solving brain, and I'm like, okay, if Peter and Mark, 2 different generations, 2 different spectrums of business and how we built careers, who care about others, who are trying to develop mastery in my career, you've developed mastery, but you continue to evolve. If we don't have the answer, what do we have?
What do we have? It's I see a dark future ahead for the media, especially, and the founders knew the media was a critical piece of the foundation of this country. It's called the Fourth Estate. It was built to hold people accountable, and to hold people accountable, you have to be trusted, to be impartial. I mean, what would you think if your courts were full of judges who paraded around carrying party labels and let the maybe we're already there.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, where they let one party go and the other one goes to prison. I mean, in some cases we're there, but it's the breakdown of institutions.
See, that's it. And so what I think about every day, I'm like, okay, so I grew up very poor. When you're talking about monetary, there was obviously something about the upbringing that benefited me. So there's something about that wasn't poor, but the financial piece, very poor.
Yes.
Food stamps in a period and all that. But I don't look back on that as negative.
Right.
I look back on, wow, what a learning experience, probably adversity and all that, but it taught me so many things. But I didn't get caught up on judging people who were different than me.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't raised that way.
Well, I think that probably part of that is that you come from a background where you understand what it's like to be there.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it's so easy to look at the waiter or the mechanic or the guy who mows your lawn or the guy who does manual labor in the blue collar world, as we used to call it, as being less than you, of being less than human, of treating them like something on your shoe. And if you come from that background, and I do too, I mean, I worked all these jobs that were like manual labor and you name it, I would do it for hourly wages. And when you're rubbing elbows with those people, first of all, you find out that a lot of them are a lot smarter than most people think. They have great life experience. They're hardworking. They're good people for the most part. And they deserve a lot of our respect. But there's so many people today that have been college educated, never had to really do real hard work in their lives, who look down on that and really belittle that.
Yeah, what sucks about this is everything we're talking about, judges, politicians, people in the media. The shared experience, we're all freaking humans.
Yes.
And we're the ones that are directing these things. Every time I hear about the government, I'm like, hey, can y'all hit the brakes? Because we're collectively the government.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's how this
in
thing's,
theory.
That's how it's supposed to be set up. And I'm like, man, what is wrong with us that we can't get back to this thing that I'm okay with some selfishness. I think there's this divide that I always try to figure out, like, where's the commonality and the division between selfishness and selflessness? Where is that for me? Because I think it's okay to have some of both. But where is it? How much? Where's the graph?
Yeah.
And there's way too much selfishness.
Yes.
Way too much.
Not enough humility.
There's not. Right?
I mean, as the old saying goes, don't think less of yourself, but think of yourself less.
Man, I tell you what, I think back when I go back to this day of the speech with JFK. I don't know when in the 60s that was, right?
Yeah.
What you could do for the country, right?
Yep.
And so I think
Ask
about that.
not.
Yes. And I'm like, man, if we led with that thing, I don't care. Politics, I don't know if I would like his politics today. I don't know, but I don't care. I just know that statement at that microphone in 1960, whatever it was.
Yeah.
It's like, man, that is the principle of what would fix all of this.
Yeah.
Every piece of it. What the hell has happened to us that we allow ourselves to get caught up in it every day? I don't know. And so I know it's possible to pull ourselves out because there's people way more highly educated than me. Master's degree, PhDs, way more people. But it's about a thought of, like, you get up every day and, hey, just let me try to do the best I can. Let me just try to treat people as well as I can. Let me just go out and make a little positive impact in the world, but let me just focus on working on me more.
Mm-hmm.
Not Peter,
Yeah.
not Dave, not Jack. Let me just work on me. And if I work on the me more than, like, focusing on somebody working on it, if I do more of that every day, it's probably going to be okay.
Yes.
Like, it seems so simple to me. And that's why these big ideas and all this stuff from, media and social media throwing, it's like, guys, that stuff is irrelevant. I'm not saying it doesn't matter in Montana. I'm not saying that. It's not that I don't care. But it has no implication on my life here and what I'm doing today.
Boy, if we could just remember how much of the things we worry about and concern ourselves about that we really have absolutely no influence over, they don't have direct impact on our lives, and we have no way of changing them, and we waste all that mental and emotional and spiritual energy obsessing over things that really are so trivial and meaningless. But there again, I go back to the media model, which is to create this bubble
Yeah.
where you're trapped in that that gas of meaningless.
I think maybe this new podcasting world can matter, and because the huge podcasts are circumventing that media model.
Good.
I don't care. Like, there's Joe Rogan's out there, right? So Joe Rogan is one of the guys. He has millions and millions of followers. Doesn't matter if you like the guy or not. But if you've ever listened to the podcast, if you have or if you haven't, the conversations he has,
Very good.
very good.
Yeah.
And people might look at that guy as a meathead. He's always in the gym. He is the announcer for UFC. That guy's smart,
He is very smart.
right? And so he sat across from people in 1,900 podcasts.
Wow.
1,900 they've had. And so you listen to those people, it will give you perspective of the world that wouldn't be reported, that wouldn't be
Exactly.
given to us in the news media. So maybe
Well,
we're circumventing it.
Well, you know what needs to be done, and we were talking about this with some friends the other night, is that there used to be a time when, even in my more recent memory, when I was working at the Inquirer, and we did a TV show on Channel 9 called Hot Seat. And it was a collection of, there was a lawyer, there was a woman who worked for City Beat, Kathy Y. Wilson, who was, she just passed away recently, which is very sad to hear that. She was a good friend. And Kathy Wilson and I couldn't have been farther apart politically, but I invited her to be on that show so that we could exchange ideas, so that we could give a back and forth and show people where we're coming from and try and support our arguments. And it was really healthy. We would bring on all kinds of guests. We had on police officers, the leader of the FOP. We had Mike Brown on one time. We had all kinds of people on the show. And it was just a really good give and take. Well, I don't see any of that happening anymore. It's all people shouting over each other. They have a group over here that's on Fox. They have a group over here that's on CNN or MSNBC, and they all agree. And they generally all agree. And there's not enough give and take where people actually listen and defend their point of view.
And that's the stuff I appreciate. I think we have a shot through podcasting to do that. I think we do. Because, and to talk about the subjects, I wish we would talk about all the controversial subjects in a professional, conversational manner, and then you could figure out your point of view.
Right.
Right. See, that's what I think
Without
you were
being labeled
Yes.
or being called a name.
Yes.
Or
like, here's what I'm going to
canceled.
Yeah. I wish that we could talk about, I'm going to find a way around not saying what's. I wish we could talk about like a subject like World War II and the good and the bad dictators, the good people on the side of Western democracies. I wish people could talk about a bad person or two, whether it was Italy, whether it was Germany, whoever it was, and even in Russia, and even though we partnered with them at the end.
Yeah.
I wish we could have a conversation about, even if it's 95% bad, I just wish we could break everything down about those people.
Yeah.
What happened in their life? What happened when they were a kid? Where did it go wrong? Where did it deviate? I just wish there could be conversations around it all.
But it's so dangerous now.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? They'll cancel you in a half a second.
It's crazy what's happened.
It's unfortunate. But that's where the podcasting thing, but I guess even on iTunes and Spotify and YouTube where this goes, you do say the wrong thing and have the right guest on, or the wrong guest on, they're going to shut you down.
They'll cancel you.
Yeah, so maybe.
Censorship is a real thing.
Isn't that wild?
It is. I never thought I'd see the day when people in the media, in newspapers, would actually speak up in favor of censoring other points of view.
And that same group used to be the defenders.
Yes,
of free speech.
Absolutely. Well, because that's the whole business model for the press. It's the First Amendment. Without the First Amendment, there would be no free press. And yet you have people in media, on TV, on talk shows, which it's a little bit more understandable because a lot of them are not really trained in journalism or understanding of the First Amendment. But in newspapers, come on.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, I was once told by one of our editors that we should stop running a conservative columnist that was very popular. And I said, why is that? Well, because he's wrong. And I said, well, you think he's wrong. It's an opinion.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, write a letter to the editor.
Yeah, write an op-ed or something, right?
Yeah.
Like, tell us why you think it. Let's put them side by side.
Yeah, you don't just lift him out of the paper and cancel him because you think he's wrong. Yeah, I was appalled.
Yeah, so some stuff started changing.
Oh.